Christina Highfield, you are a talented artist in many different ways. So welcome to, what, your first art hop?
Yeah, my very first one.
Yeah, tell us about you.
My name is Christina. I currently run BookField. It's a vintage bookstore, and I also have art made from damaged books there. I've been doing it for about 3 years now, and this is actually my very first art hop.
What is a damaged book?
Anything that is falling apart past the point of no return. Sometimes they're missing covers, sometimes there's missing pages. Anything that's really not fixable. If I can't rebind it, I try to find a new way to give it a new life.
Staying with that topic, how did you get into that niche?
It really kind of just started with me being crafty. I started with bookmarks because it made the most sense to make bookmarks to go with my books, and from there it kind of expanded, and I tried to find different ways that I could use every part of the book so nothing's getting thrown out.
And as I look around, much of this has to do with books. Were you a book reader as a little Christina?
Yeah, I used to walk down the hallways and read between classes and spend every day reading because it was a way to escape, and you get to go on all these different adventures that you can't just do on your own life.
Well, let's take a look at many of your wares here, and let's start with the book. The bunny, what's all this?
Yeah, so this used to be a children's book. Children's books tend to fall apart easier because kids are playing with them, the pages get drawn on, and the binding was falling apart, but the cover itself was still in good condition, and I decided to turn them into journals so that way people can either write in them or draw in them, which is kind of fun, and I hand stitch every single one of them.
Goodness gracious. And then you have bookmarks to go with your books.
Yes. Yeah, so I have...
Tell me about this.
Yeah, so these are old library checkout cards. The younger generation might not be familiar with them because everything's done digitally now. But back in the day, you would find these inside your book, and that's how you would check out your books. And I found them inside a lot of my vintage books that I sold, and it didn't make sense to kind of keep them in there anymore. And so now I turn them into bookmarks, so you kind of get that little piece of history as you're reading. Kind of takes you back in time.
Yes, and more bookmarks with maps and other types of history on it.
Yeah, I've always I love bookmarks myself. I collect them at home, and I'm always trying to find a different way to put pages into them. So I use vintage maps for some of them. That's kind of where I started. Then I moved into making ones with coffee. So these are made out of coffee and wine and tea. Yeah, stains. Yeah, I wanted something different than just traditional watercolor, and coffee and books kind of pair well together, so why not make a bookmark that symbolizes that? And then I just kind of moved around, so these are vintage highlights magazines from the 1970s, and they have this really cool yellow color, and I thought they were fun for Halloween, and everything's kind of new and different, and if I can try it, I do.
Good that you do. How about the jewelry side of you?
I actually just started my jewelry line this year. I had a bunch of vintage illustrations laying around because when books fall apart, sometimes there's illustrations on the inside. I was kind of saving them up for one day an art project, and I decided why not try necklaces, and I created a bunch of different ones. My favorite ones are the ones with the insects or the little bugs, 'cause it's different and you don't really see that often.
Is there one to be shown?
Yes, I actually...
Let's peek at that.
So this one has a grasshopper on it, and it has stripes on it, which is fun. And I love all the different details that insects will have, and it's kind of fits the niche of vintagey aesthetic, Edwardian, Victorian kind of style. So.
It's obviously part of your style.
Yeah.
Christina, what are these?
So this is actually a new product I just created literally this week. It's my first prototype. It's clay made out of paper. So it was kind of a different way for me to use my pages that were just stockpiling because I didn't have enough uses for them. And I figured, well, why not try to create something completely different that would blow someone's mind? Because you don't really think of clay being made from paper. It's not a traditional substance. And usually when people think of paper being made into something, it's paper mache. So it's kind of a twist on paper mache, but it's a little bit more moldy, and you can do different things with it, which is fun.
How do you develop your creativity as an artist?
I'm usually just always looking to nature, trying to bring in what I love. One of my favorite things to work with is dried flowers. I like using it in my necklaces. I put them inside ornaments and my little vials for decorations. I started doing the bookmarks with the flowers this last year. Just anything that can kind of bring nature back and tie it into books, because books came from trees and it's kind of nice to give back.
And these are books of their own?
Yeah, so when I make my journals, I end up with leftover paper when I cut the pages. And I couldn't bear throwing out the paper, because my whole point of it is to keep books out of the landfill, and I don't want to create more waste than I need to. So I started creating little journals left over with all the scraps. Some of them are made with faux leather. Some of them are actually made with paper that I created here at the Kalamazoo Book Art Center downtown, which is really fun to make paper of your own and have that process to go from pulp to an actual product. And I think it's a nice little touch to bring my creativity and myself into my products.
So your creativity kind of has a message to it, whether it's sustainability or protecting the environment.
Yeah, I really started my book business because I noticed that people were throwing books out, and that broke my heart. And I was like, why are we throwing books out? That makes no sense. You're throwing out knowledge. And so I started collecting them and saving them, and it just kind of turned into this thing of trying to keep books out of the landfill, and that's why I started doing the art, because it was a way for me to use those damaged books instead of throwing them back out, and that's definitely not what I wanted. And I've slowly been trying to get back in touch with the earth, and every quarter I make donations and plant trees, because it's super important to me to help get our earth back to where it's supposed to be.
Which item do you anticipate being your bestseller?
Usually the journals do really well with my last couple markets. It's something different that not a lot of people see, and I know other people like me hoard journals at home, and they're always fun to kind of dot little notes down in or draw in. And so those are always usually my best sellers. They're different.
Well, may you go home with nothing left.
Yeah, that's what I hope for.
Christina, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.